Okay. So welcome to our testing virtual workshop, What You Need to Know About Testing. This is a Lunch and Learn series with TCC Talent Search program. So we're not going to keep you very long, but we're going to give you all some helpful information so that when your school is talking about these different tests, you can actually know what they're talking about and not just say, I don't know what test that is, because the more confident you are, usually the better tester you will be.
Reminders. Welcome. Raffle will be at the end of this section. Seats open for FSU tour and STEM events will be July the 28th. We have SAT and ACT fee waivers and test prep materials.
So Ms. McLaughlin and also Cornelius, if you all need, I think you probably already got it in the past, but just in case, we do have SAT and ACT fee waivers so that the registration would be free for those. And I know the boys are working, but next Friday we do have the FSU tour and we still do have a few seats open for that. Okay, so we're going to cover SAT, ACT, the fast progress monitoring, and also the PERT. I'm going to break them down for everyone so they can get a few little tips about each one. Okay, so we're going to break them down for everyone. Also, I forgot to mention, if you can, in the chat, if you could sign in. I know a lot of y'all are at work, so you might not be able to sign in, but just your name and grade if you can. Okay, so we're going to have Mr. Richard start. He's going to talk about the ACT, then we'll go through the other tests and just give you all some tips.
Okay. ACT. About the ACT. The ACT is a college entrance exam that evaluates students' readiness for college. College admission boards can judge a student's current level of knowledge, as well as their ability to reason and think logically.
So these tests are going to be important because college readiness and also scholarships. So some people are not sure about college yet. They're not exactly sure where they want to go, if they want to go, but just know that scholarships are also tied to these test scores. And they want to know, okay, obviously you're in 11th grade, obviously you're a senior, but do you have reasoning and can you think logically?
More about the ACT. The ACT covers 215 questions in 2 hours and 55 minutes, plus an optional 40-minute write-ups. Sections: math, science, English. Those who excel at reading charts and graphs and have a command of science terminology will have an advantage on the ACT.
So when you're talking SAT and ACT, and with math, science, English, perfect. This science part is not a part of the SAT, but it is on the ACT. It's like it's saying, look, if you can read charts and graphs, so if you're a person that reads charts and graphs and they make sense to you, then you might like the ACT. And I always tell people, for the science, they're going to give you charts and graphs to look at. So it's okay if you don't have advanced science in your school, you could still pass the ACT science if you can read the charts and graphs that they give you. You also know there's 2 hours and 55 minutes. You know, it's a pretty long test.
Here's for the ACT. You get less time for each ACT question, but the questions are more straightforward. There is only one math section. Only 25% of the total score is math-based, and you may use a calculator. Fast readers who quickly can recall the location of information in the passages they will read will have a big advantage on the ACT.
Okay. People just ask me off the cuff, okay, Ms. Sabrina, for these tests, what would you tell anybody who's just trying to get a better score? I will tell you this. Confident readers who can read fast and comprehend, they get through the test and then have time to go back and check their answers, therefore usually getting better scores. how to become a confident reader who reads fast and comprehends, you got to be reading during the week, not just forced assigned reading. Yes, I know there's stuff your school makes you read, but there's other things that you can be reading, even if it's just the newspaper online, if it's a book that you like to read, a comic book, something. But the more words you take in during the week, these tests won't seem so stressful. There's other students, they read a few paragraphs at school, they don't read at home. So when they get to these testing days with pages of reading, they literally burn out after the second one. So you got to just do more reading in your life.
Tips for the ACT. Score range. 1 low to 36 high. Sections breakdown. English is 75 questions. Math is 60 questions. Reading is 40 questions. And science is 40 questions.
Okay. So if you've ever taken the ACT yet, which a lot of you have taken this at least once or practice, just know, okay, that's my range, obviously 1 to 36. And you're interested in where you fall on that range. In the colleges you're interested, what are they looking for as far as these test scores go? And the breakdown does help you, just to help you have some idea. So again, if you're even decently okay at science, you might find those 40 questions can really bump up your score compared to the SAT we'll talk about later that does not have science and relies only on the English and the math and the reading. Okay, so that was ACT. Now let's talk about PERT for a little bit. You might have already heard about PERT, but I like to go over it again, just in case you or a friend need to take it or have already taken it, but didn't understand why. Okay, here's the thing about the PERT. The PERT is showing that you can take college-ready, college-level classes. It's throughout the whole entire state of Florida and other states. It has a math, a reading, and a writing section. And if you take the PERT, if your school says, come on, take the PERT, if they offer the PERT and say, do you want to take it? It's a good thing to say, yeah, I want to try out the PERT, because you could maybe do dual enrollment or other ways to get college level classes in high school. So for the math, okay, algebraic equations, that's on there. Linear equations, quadratic equations, standard algorithms, and even coordinate planes. So this should sound like some of the math that you're doing in high school, but they want to see, okay, you're in high school, here's a chance to take some college credits, usually for free or reduced cost. That's the PERT. Now the reading part, okay, critical reading. Okay, so I told y'all earlier, if you're not a big reader, you got to get a little bit more on it with the reading, okay? Because you need to know how to find out the meaning in the passage, what was the author trying to say, fact and opinion, and key ideas. So you can't just call out words fast. You have to read at a steady pace and understand what you just read. Then the writing section. It's going to be some questions. It's going to ask you to do some writing, making sure your grammar is correct, that, okay, you can actually make a correct sentence. And cohesive writing, that means your writing flows together. You know, you say first, then, next, in conclusion, it goes together. But you're not jumping all over the page. They say, describe your day, and you say, well, at nighttime, I like to have dinner, but then I also have football practice at 2 p.m. You want it to make sense and flow. And you have to understand appropriate word choice, okay? They want to see, okay, now you're in high school, show us what your potential is. Some tips for the PERT. There is no time limit on the PERT, okay? Now here's the average time it takes. Students typically take 30 minutes for the math and 30 minutes for the writing, and the reading about 1 hour, okay? So typically, when people ask me, I say it's going to be at least 2 hours. You do not need to rush. If you do rush, you might not do your best, and you might not get the score that you need to show your school that you can take dual enrollment classes. Okay, also for PERT, and I forgot to say this too, PERT is also important if you go to a private school or some other types of schools who don't always use SAT, ACT, but they do use PERT. The PERT, it can range from 50 to 150. So that's your score can range to 50 to 150. You will get 3 PERT scores. You'll get a reading one, a math one, and a writing. The reading PERT, you need 106 or higher to equal a college level class. The math, a 114, and the math, I didn't go into it on here, but different scores place you in different math classes. And then lastly, the writing would be a 103, and that would place you in a college level writing class. Okay, if you don't make those scores, you can take the test again, but just know that there is some cutoffs that you need to have for PERT scores. Okay, now this is the SAT, and here's the changes coming up to the SAT. So this is going to be one of the things that you're going to know before your friends, because people have been taking the SAT pretty much the same way for years, but there's some changes coming, and most people don't know this is coming. So you will know this before your friends. Okay. You can kind of skip this one that says international SAT. Okay, so they're changing the SAT and they're going digital, like almost everything in life. It has been paper-based all this time, paper pencil. It's going digital. So here's what y'all need to know. The PSAT, which can be for 9th and 10th grade, sometimes 11th, in the fall, they're going to test it out on the computer, okay? And by the spring, it's going to stay on the computer. Now, the regular SAT, in the fall, it's still going to be paper pencil. So from now in the test dates all the way through about December will be paper pencil. But when you get to January, it's going to turn to computer-based and it won't be going back. Then everyone will be on computer-based. So if you are taking the SAT soon, you're going to take it in September, October, November, December, you'll be paper pencil. If you wait longer than that, it's going to be digital. So just keep this in mind. This big change is going to be impacting everybody. Okay, what are some of the differences? Here's some of the differences. Obviously, paper pencil, the digital will be on the computer. The most important thing I would tell anybody is it's going to be adaptive. Adaptive means you will get a question. If you get that question right, you will get a slightly more difficult question. If you get it wrong, they'll bump it down and they'll give you an easier question. You won't know the difference, but the computer will. Right now on the paper-based test, when Mr. Richard gets his SAT book, all the questions are already in it. It's not going to change. This digital one is going to be adaptive in the background. So just so you know, might have a feeling of like, this is getting kind of challenging. Why are these questions? Because if you keep on getting them right, it's going to give you more challenge. Notice this, they are chopping down the time, 3 hours to 2 hours and 14 minutes, okay? They're doing that because it's going to be a lot less questions, but just know they're chopping down the time, which I hope will maybe help because some students get so tired and they just don't, they're after 2 hours, they just are struggling. Okay, so they have different ways of scoring it. They had a whole bunch of ways before. They're going to have section scores. You notice, oh my goodness, they used to have 52 reading questions, 44 writing, math, no calculator, 20, math calculator, 38. That's why it took 3 whole hours. They're changing all that up, okay? The two reading and writing sections will have 27 each, and the 2 math questions will have 22 each, okay? And just know that the essays are going away, okay? So this SAT test is important, again, for college readiness and scholarship opportunities. But you see it's changing. Mr. Richard, you wanted to go over these?
Yes. Computer online testing. The features. Students may navigate freely through a given module of questions. Mark questions for review. Test timer can be hidden alert when 5 minutes remain. Built-in graphing calculators available. Personal calculator can also be used. Math reference sheets, highlighting and note-taking will be available.
Okay, so these are the features that y'all will be able to access when you take this online test.
Okay, here you got section scores, current and digital, SAT scores. Over to your left, I have you can make a 540 evidence-based reading, writing score. It ranges from 200 to 800. Then over to my right, you have 440 for the math score, and it ranges from 200 to 800. Your total scores right here, that's just an example, 980 total scores, and it ranges from 400 to 1600.
Okay, so just an example. So if you've ever taken the SAT before, you got some kind of email or paperwork in the mail about your score, it would have been somewhere between 400 to 1600. And these are just some examples here of showing you what the breakdown is. You got some people, man, they might get a 700 on the reading part, okay? But they really struggle and got like a 400 on the math, or it can be completely flipped. So just know, this is your total score. So of course, anytime you do strong, it's going to help you, but that's how they come up with those scores. Because there's going to be thousands of seniors graduating, and they got to figure out some kind of way about who knows what besides just your GPA. Okay, this is the newest thing, and we're almost getting towards the end. The fast progress monitoring. So, for all of y'all in here, back in the day, it was FCAT. More recently, it's FSA, but they're moving to the fast progress monitoring. But it's still, for high schoolers, you still take a combination of FSA and FAST, but parents, you might not have heard of that FAST until last year. What is it? Okay, it's English and math. It replaced the FSA English and math for certain grade levels, okay? Now it's just the fast progress monitoring. Now, if you have science, that still might be FSA science, but FSA English and math, okay, they went away. This FAST system started last fall. 3rd through 10th grade was the ELA reading. 3rd through 8th was the math. So it's just last year. So if you said, what is this? No one told me about this. No one warned me. It was literally brand new. Y'all were the first class to have it, okay? It's in 3, they do it 3 times a year. So that should sound familiar. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Just know that, of course, it's computer-based, but the beginning and the middle, those were the baseline. They got to see what you already know to figure out, okay, how have you grown this year? So it's not like FSA and FCAT, which was one big test, take it or leave it. Now they're talking about 3 different times to show your growth in your reading and your math skills. Okay, here's what you need to know. They're not just testing you to test you for nothing. This year, I doubt you'll see much about what y'all did last year for the FAST, but coming back in the fall, they're going to look at it and give it to you again to see, okay, are you showing growth? If you happen to be in 11th and 12th grade and you didn't pass FSA, it's possible that they might use some of this FAST as well. So you just have to kind of see. But they can use it for class placement. Who gets to be in honors classes? Who gets to be in regular classes? Remedial services. Are you not on grade level? Okay, we're gonna have a whole group of students who are not on grade level. Promotion and retention, that's coming in the future. Okay, at some point they might say, based on this fast progress monitoring, we don't think you're going to pass the 5th grade, and we are keeping you here. And then lastly, graduation, again, coming in the future, graduation requirements can be tied to this FAST testing. So based on when you came in 9th grade, if you notice this, okay, if you came in 9th grade between 2013 and 2014, you had the FSA ELA, and they had a passing score of 349. Well, 1 year later, they bumped it up 1 point. So anyone from 2014 all the way to 2021, y'all did FSA with a 350 passing score. But the freshmen that came in 2021, so that would be the other year, okay? They are going to be using the FAST scores with a 350. So it's kind of confusing, but just know when they say that progress monitoring and some of the kids are like goofing off and not paying attention, you need to be paying attention because every score attached to your name, you want it to be a good score. Okay, we tried to make it short because we know it's lunchtime. A lot of people are working. Do y'all have any questions for us? Questions, okay. I know Miss McLaughlin is driving, so if you think of something later, you can let us know. We do have actually 2 things. Richard, on the piece of paper, will you write down these 3 names that are in here with us? Because they can't do the chat because some of them are driving, some of them are at work.
Okay.
Okay. So we want to thank y'all for coming and attending our little brief section. And actually, I'm going to stop the recording right there. Let's see.